What is going on, Nev Nation, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm asking the question, should the Pokemon TCG bring back the first edition stamp and the first edition line of products? Now, this question came to me after I received a notification that a particular TCG was coming out with their second edition line of products. And of course, I'm talking about none other than MetaZoo. And I know just speaking that name stirs up a whole lot of emotion. But with that being said, PokeNav and PokeRealm are both going to be carrying them. That's right. PokeNav here on this channel, this PokeNav brand, and PokeRealm, my other business, will both be carrying MetaZoo products for the foreseeable future. That is going to include both first edition and second edition. Now, let's just pump the brakes here. We don't know what allocations are going to look like. We don't know what numbers are going to look like, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But nonetheless, I am excited to announce that both of these business ventures will be carrying MetaZoo for the foreseeable future. So with that being said, since this was the TCG that kind of prompted me to think about this first edition question, let's go ahead and jump into Pokemon specifically and see if this could be a viable option in this day and age. So if we go all the way back to Wizards of the Coast era and we think about the first edition line of products, well, many of us back then that grew up with that first edition era was really from about 1999 to 2002. Neo Destiny was the last Pokemon set to include first edition products, at least for English products. Obviously, Japanese products have continued this trend, which we'll get to here in a moment. But English products ended with Neo Destiny, and the first edition was something that was so cool, right? When we think back to base set and we think about learning what a first edition Charizard was, what a shadowless Charizard was, what an unlimited Charizard was, just learning that and being able to have a first edition card in your collection was a big deal. Now, if we fast forward to later sets, we start fast forwarding to future generations as well. So it's really a short time frame in there that people grew up with first edition products, and it's really, again, about the span of 3 years, 4 years that Pokemon, more specifically Wizards of the Coast, were releasing these first edition products. So really bringing back first edition, I think, would appeal mainly to those Gen 1ers like myself that grew up with it, that understand it, that have a sentimental attachment to it. Whereas when you start getting into EX era, Heart Gold, Soul Silver era, people that grew up with those sets, they don't have that same emotional attachment to it. And so therefore it probably would not be as appealing. And especially when you get into today's day and age, a lot of the kids growing up now have only known things like full art cards, hyper rare cards, amazing rare cards, alternate art cards. So I think including a first edition stamp on today's products from Pokemon's perspective, from an advertising, from a marketing perspective, would not have near as the appeal on today's current generation or generations that preceded it as it did on ours. For those of you out there that are around my age in your late 20s, early 30s, there's a much more of an appeal for first edition stamps and much more of a collectible appeal for us than with future generations. So Pokemon looks at something like that and they say, would it really have that much of an influence on the vast majority of collectors, players, just consumers out there? I'd say they would probably lean more towards no on that particular area. Now, we can also argue that from the collectible and the value standpoint, bringing something like a first edition stamp or first edition line of products back would be great, because then you would be able to separate. There's been this large schism that has existed of collectors and investors out there. And if you had a first edition run of products, then you could essentially appease both. You could appease the investors by giving them something that is of limited quantity and of more value because of that scarcity. And then the collectors out there, or really more so the players, you could have the unlimited versions that would essentially appease them. For people that don't really care about the value, they just want to be able to collect and they want to be able to do so in mass quantities, you could essentially appease both sides. Now, the con of doing that is that you would essentially create even more hype, right? You would create even more hype, and I think you would spur on scalpers even more. Now, if we go back to the late 90s, the early 2000s, you did not see first edition products in stores. So Pokemon could essentially follow the same kind of trend here, only releasing first edition products, perhaps on Pokemon Center. And in a sense, they've kind of done that with their Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes. Those are only released and they are only exclusive to PokemonCenter.com. So it's not a first edition stamp, but that same level of exclusivity exists in the Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes, and then they release the regular Elite Trainer boxes out to the mass public. So in essence, we see something similar there, and we could have the same thing with a first edition print run where it was only available on Pokemon Center, and then hobby stores, big box stores, they could all just receive the unlimited version of that particular release. Now, obviously, many of you are probably thinking to yourself, well, what about bots? One of the big things that did not exist back in 1999 and early 2000s, or really that did not exist until about 2020, were bots, right? So as soon as Pokemon Center is dropping products on the website, they're almost bought up immediately, and that's just unlimited products. And even for sets that aren't that popular, they get bought out immediately. And especially the Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs, again, they're off the store shelves within minutes of release. So you could almost guarantee that the same thing would happen if you had a first edition run of products that was only released on Pokemon Center. Bots would go in and they would scoop those up, and so the vast majority of people out there wouldn't even be able to get their hands on first edition products, because we can use the Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs as our example. Now, that's not to say that Pokemon Center couldn't do something about that, couldn't have other safeguards, firewalls, what have you, to exclude or to eliminate, or at least at the mitigate the bots from scooping up all those products. But that's certainly an issue that exists now that didn't exist back then, or even just really 18 months, 2 years ago, that we would definitely have to look out for. And along the same lines as the bot issue that we currently have, that we didn't have back in the day, another issue that exists now, or another paradigm shift from the WotC era, is that Wizards of the Coast had full intention of releasing a full print run of first edition products, and then 5 to 10 print runs of unlimited, which is something that we don't have now. Pokemon Company itself really doesn't have the means, especially right now, to do a full print run of first edition and then 10 print runs of unlimited. We're lucky if we're getting a few print runs, or a few waves rather, of a particular set, and again, that's just unlimited products. You're not slapping a first edition stamp on there. So again, another issue that we have. Now, that's not to say that when things don't turn back around and when the hype dies down, that Pokemon, especially if they take manufacturing back into their own hands, like Wizards of the Coast had with Pokemon cards back in the day, that's not to say that they wouldn't be able to meet that full print run of first edition and then 10 print runs of unlimited. It certainly could be done, but when I look at that and I look at the troubles that were currently existing and the foreseeable future of being able to just meet the demand of what we have, to me, Pokemon does not want to take on that added risk, that added hassle of creating a full print run of the first edition and then a subsequent 10 print runs of unlimited. I think right now their focus is just to try to get as much product out there as they can to try to satisfy the needs and the demands of the overall public. So with all that being said, going over the pros and the cons of Pokemon bringing back the first edition stamp or first edition line of products, do I think this is something that would be beneficial, or that I think Pokemon would actually do? I don't. And to be honest, when I weigh the two together, I think the cons outweigh the pros. I think that based upon the current paradigm in which we exist, the fact that a lot of the people from my generation that started with Pokemon, their taste, their motivations have changed dramatically from back then until now. You add on top of that the limited supply, the unlimited ability to print products in this day and age, the ever increasing hype of Pokemon. I think that the company itself, it would be a manufacturing nightmare to bring something like this back. And then also the taste of the generations. Again, we're only looking at about 4 years and really a one generation, maybe 2 generations of people that actually grew up with first edition products. And let's be honest, the vast majority of us, even back then, did not have first edition cards or first edition packs, booster boxes, things like that. Most of us had unlimited. So even for us that grew up with it, the vast majority did not actually have it. We wanted it, but we didn't actually have it. And so for other generations, basically the rest of the history of the Pokemon TCG, they have not experienced first edition cards and probably aren't looking to have that as part of their collection. It's not even a forethought in their mind. They're more focused on artworks, the aesthetic appeals, all of those different things that Pokemon has really focused on for really the last 20 years or so. So guys, let me know what you thought of today's conversation. Let me know what you think about MetaZoo, and if you are excited for it, if you're excited for the 2nd edition print run of Cryptid Nation and for all future MetaZoo sets. And other than that, I will see you all next time. My name is Pokenav. I'm here to help you navigate the world of Pokemon one video at a time, and I will see you all in the next video.